Are these all coming as far as
Those are the ones that are sent their money and all that.
you said Rob Rule, wasn't
So what happens is one of our classmates should be able to do it.
This is really fun to listen to.
Yeah, this is
Well, good idea. Right.
This is good.
Oh, they were asking that. They know you very well, huh?
See, now some of our classmates were old to begin with, so
Go ahead. Don't stop now.
He said he would be back. I speak with him a couple times a year. He looks good. He's like, oh, good.
and so therefore they're hunting. I heard now Jim Kelly and I heard somebody else go and they talk about goose or geese. Depending on your luck.
Gooses. Jim Zidell was saying he's a bird watcher, and I do some duck hunting down in Salton Sea, and he bird watcher. He says, how could you do that? I mean, he says, I was watching these little ducks, and all of a sudden these two hunters come and they go boom, boom, boom. I mean, they just blew their little faces away.
Yeah, it sure has.
Cottonwood trees, maybe 30 pounds.
It's great. It's really good to hear out.
She doesn't come like that too big.
That's right.
Maybe.
Should have done the fish and the chicken.
I was going to wear my tuxedo tonight. And
I heard all about that.
I know.
I heard all about it.
The problem is I came up here, and I stayed, and I had this suit. And so I just got to bring my tuxedo down.
Well, I went to get into mine, it wouldn't fit. So I was so damn mad. I'm going to wear one, so I went out and rented one. All the other.
You look very, very handsome.
Someone in the elevator was accusing me of being stabbed. Hilton's employee of the month has to go and work part-time at the Marriott.
I'm sorry.
See how you look today.
Looks the same.
And then up there. Oh, you didn't change.
Yeah, right.
Let's see.
Okay, acapella. Sing, do something.
Oh, you got a little mustache.
Pat, make them disappear.
This is Wayne Bemis, not Beavis. Okay. And that's. Oh, hi. How you doing? Okay.
Thank you, Pat.
You know what? You're still a charming guy.
What is 30 years?
Where's your wife?
Bring my wife.
Oh, there she is. Looking forward for
When I
tonight?
graduated, she was 12.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
1963.
Yeah, right.
If I'd had the Southern Rock, they would have been
Well, you have the language, you know, the bisecting the angle with whatever, and all the other stuff. Wouldn't have had a clue what was going on. Didn't have to learn the language, didn't have to learn the naming organization. The first couple months of it.
For those of you who haven't seen me since I had a crew cut and couldn't grow vision here, my name's Al Rosenblum. I'm honored and pleased to be able to be part of this program and part of this evening. I'm having a great time. We had a great time planning this event, and if you have, and I assume you are having as good a time as we had planning, it's going to be great. I've always been proud to be a graduate of USC, and I've been particularly proud to be part of this class. I was an average student in this class, and just being around talented people and bright people like my classmates has made my career successful. And I tell my patients that I was an average member of this class. And so I want to thank all of you for the 4 years that we all remember so well. I'd now like to introduce and have the members of the committee come up. So when I call your name, if you come up, let everybody see who made this evening happen. Pat Slavens. Pat? That was great. Mel attended the planning meeting. Where's Mel? Get up here. Mel was at the original planning session of the committee, and he was available for us to call on whenever we needed help. But his busy lecture and travel schedule didn't allow him to attend some of the meetings. That's why he's reluctant to come up. Dave Fishman, David, come on up here. I should have you guys bring a glass with you. Dave was great. Dave handled all the printing for this event, and I know I imposed on him, and he did all that was asked of him. Chuck Julian.
There he is.
Chuck's great. He understands the chain of command, and he says, yes, sir, and he gets it done. And it was great working with Chuck. Wayne and Woody. Wayne and Woody were an entry, and they worked so well together, they probably could have handled everything. Steve Weisberg and Al Marahi. Steve and Al were both building workers, and their humor added to our meetings. We spent most of the time laughing, very little of the time working. As early as this morning, Al, Doug Oswell. Doug was my main man. Doug handled the whole program tonight and chauffeured me to the meeting. And last but not least, the president of the USC Dental Alumni Association, Harris Doan. And Harris is the now we're supposed to help. And wait just a minute. I think he does all the work. And you're right. And last but definitely not least, Leon Underwood. He does all the work. Leon is a true gentleman. He handled all of the finances, made arrangements for the T-shirts, kept me on the ball, made a lot of phone calls to me to say, did you remember to do? And Leon, I wasn't going to forget. And I'd also like Max and John to come up. They're going to be the MCs for tonight. And Johnny, come on. And now we'd like to make a toast. Lord Byron said, a toast, Lord heaven for. May each of you continue to dream and reach for your goals, and may each of you achieve them with joy and prosperity. A toast to life. L'chaim.
Good job, Al.
I've already made you a brief memorial ceremony. If I could have your attention, please. The toast was supposed to come after the memorial ceremony, but it would be appropriate for us to honor those in our class who passed away. So if you'll join me in a moment of silence, if you'll join me in a moment of silence in memory of Al Brand, Dick Arcani, Ed Gabay, Ernie Tanaka, and my lab partner, Davey Rossellini.
I'm going to tell her what you said. Turn her roller skates ready. Boy.
What you really said was, we'll pay for it. Whatever it costs, we'll do it. That's what you really said. Oh, well.
Listen, you can tolerate that. It's okay. We're going to have Nicole and Dougie sleep with us.
Nicole, you gonna sleep over?
Yeah.
Don't worry. No snoring. Hey, listen. We don't simmer anymore. This is the original lump in the belly. Hey, listen.
Listen, I let him do whatever he wants.
Spontaneous sex.
Well, that's because of your personality. Nobody's bad. Sing songs. You have to turn it on, darling.
It's my pleasure tonight. Hello, anyone? Anyone out there?
Leon likes this. He's a ham. Really? Okay. Well, get up there, Bob.
Okay. Not any better? It doesn't get any better. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce one of our guests, who was a 1962 graduate of USC Dental School. Now, when we started school in 1959, we were very relying on the 1962 graduates because they were our big brothers. Well, Howard Lansman was one of our big brothers, and he proved to help us out quite a bit. He graduated in 1962, became a captain in the U.S. Air Force Dental Corps. He practiced out in Japan. When he returned, he had a successful practice in Huntington Beach. He returned to USC as an American Fund for Dental Education Fellow for a master's degree in higher education and a specialty certificate in prosthodontics. Before assuming position as dean at the dental school, Howard was co-director of advanced prosthodontics, chairman of restorative dentistry, associate dean for academic and faculty affairs, and executive associate dean. He held the Rex Ingram professorship in restorative dentistry. He is the holder of the G. Donald Marion James Montgomery Professor of Dentistry. He is a diplomat of the Examining Board and an examining member of the American Board of Prosthodontics. He is a fellow of the American and international branches of many prestigious dental organizations and has been invited to present to over 150 organizations worldwide. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm introducing Howard, because we all know him so well, but I think it's always good to just review many of the accomplishments that Howard has done. On his personal side, he's married to his lovely wife, Lynn. He has a beautiful daughter, Lori, who's a graduate student at Columbia University in New York. He's interested in electronics, computers, and is a ham radio operator. In 2 weeks, Howard will also be honored by the State of Israel in receiving the Maimonides Award for his contributions to medical science. It's no wonder that USC has chosen Howard to be a dean to lead us into the 21st century. I now give you Dr. Howard Lansman.
Well, thanks a lot. That was really quite an introduction. And the reason Leon did that is Leon didn't mention one thing, and that is for 7 years, I practiced part-time in Leon's office, and I still owe him 3 months' rent. You may wonder why I really am here this evening.
I was wondering, Howard.
You've been wondering all your life. ago, I was at the faculty center at the university, and I saw some of these, this committee of class of 1963 sitting there in the commons, not in the commons, in the faculty center in one of the rooms, and I just happened to walk in, and I said, well, what are you guys doing here? And they immediately said, well, pay the bill. And I found out that this was the organizing committee for this event you have this evening. And I looked at my calendar and realized that Lynn and I did not have anything going on, and said, what the hell, for a free dinner, I'll come also. And they gave me an invitation, so I want to thank you for that. The interesting thing about being dean of the dental school is not the everyday problems you have, because that's no different than any of you have in your practice or whatever you're doing in your life at the moment. What I have found interesting in the past 3 years is to get to know some of the faculty that all of us knew as teachers and formed our opinions about. I mean, there were still people there while I was an instructor and while I was a teacher, and actually while I was dean, who all of us knew as good guys, bad guys, whatever. And I can tell you many stories, but for example, John Sewell. I mean, all of you remember John Sewell, do you not? Right, so do I. And what I remember about John Sewell is when we went in there and for our histology class, for a practical examination, if you remember, do you ever recall that he lined us up against the wall, and then he would walk back and forth, and then look at us and say, if I see you turning your head at the microscope or something, it's the end of you, or all of that. And I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking about things like that. And so, needless to say, when I became dean, John was still at school, and I became John Sewell's boss. And so, I called John Sewell in one day, and I related that story to him. And I said, John, do you remember what you used to do to us? How you'd line us up against the wall, and you'd parade back and forth. And I said, I peed in my pants one day as you did that. And John Sewell looked at me and said, I don't remember that. And John Sewell's no longer with us. No, John actually retired last year, and the neat thing is when you get to know the individuals, you get to know them as really decent human beings who, at the time, that was the thing to do. I guess to harass a student was a normal thing, and to be rigid and to do those kind of things was a normal thing to do. Today, if an instructor or a faculty member tried to do that, the faculty member would probably get a kick in the rear end. And what's really interesting this evening is to look around the room and see people like Tara Stone and others, Bob Avakian, who were always the good guys. There's a couple of good guys that all of us remember, and those are the people that sort of left the positive imprint in our lives, certainly in my life. One of the things that I've tried to do at the school in the past 2.5 years is to promote what I call a humanistic environment at the School of Dentistry. I no longer believe, nor should anyone believe, in 1993 that one gets the best education by creating the most anxiety possible. Any of us who have read good textbooks on education or anything of that nature understand that when the anxiety level gets to a certain level, that there's no learning curve. The learning curve goes down to nothing. And so we try and keep the anxiety level just the opposite of what it was when many of us went to school and the so-called greats harassed a lot of us. And I can assure you that as long as I'm dean, it'll be that way, and we'll keep the anxiety level at a minimum and still provide the kind of education that we think students should get to become a great dentist, dental hygienist, and specialist. So, at any rate, I'm honored to be here this evening, and my wife, Lynn, and I are very pleased to be with all of you, and certainly hope that we can celebrate the 50th anniversary with all of you, and certainly wish you a great evening. And SC is still a great school, and one of the great schools not only in the United States, but in the world, and we aim to keep it that way. Thank you very much.
T-shirt.
Bob Avakian. Bob graduated from USC in 1954, and since that time has had a distinguished record as a part-time teacher of operative dentistry and fixed prosthodontics. In 1976, he achieved the rank of clinical professor, a status that I think is no longer achievable. Howard, is that correct? Clinical professor is no longer clinical.
For Bob it is.
Two graduating classes voted him Teacher of the Year. For those of you who don't remember, Bob was the teacher that we voted Teacher of the Year in 1963. Bob's memberships and service to the professional organizations reads like a directory of organizations. In addition to his tripartite membership in ADA, he belongs to the Academy of Gold Foil Operators and the Academy of Operative Dentistry. He's a member of the Pierre Fauchard Academy, the Fédération Dentaire Internationale, the Academy of General Dentistry. He's a life member of the Century Club, charter member of the Golden Century Club, life member of Dentistry Associates, and life member of the USC Alumni Association. He's served as president of the Jones Gold Foil Study Club and president of the Century Club, and also president of OKU National Honor Society. As a student, he won the Lewis E. Ford Memorial Award. Who won that in our class? Anybody? As a student, he won the Lewis E. Ford Memorial Award for fixed class, and is a fellow of both the American College of Dentists and the International College of Dentists. Those are only the highlights of a brilliant dental career. One thing you won't see on his resume is what kind of a teacher he was for all of us. He was always respectful and understanding. He was far in advance of his time, Howard, in that respect. And he respected our lack of experience, and I attest to that personally. He made learning a pleasure and was a role model who gave all of us a better understanding of what professionalism is all about. Bob Avakian, Bob, will you come up?
I look at Doug Oswald over there as Mr. Ladies Man, his wife would appreciate that. Pretty Alan smile, Pat with all you know what's, and Kay just all the time. And but really, it's been a long, great relationship with all of you. And I think we look back though, and we see we all maturated in a way of going through school when school was tough. But I think we had teachers who were good teachers, not myself, who were very fair. And I think you learned a great deal. And I think you wanted to learn too, which is the way it should be. And God knows today the times have changed. We're going back 30 years, 32 years ago, when things are different. But I have great stories. Remember, and my greatest story, and I embellish a lot, is Maurice Cutler up there. And one day he comes up to me. This is the funniest thing in the world. And it's to take that clinic on that Tuesday, the mountain part in the afternoon, he said, Dr. Avakian, what do I do? I said, go buy me a 556 bird. So now, what's your name? Max. He struts down to the thing and buys a 566 bird. So he gets all done cutting this thing, and he says, look at it. I said, come here. So I said, what the hell did you do? He said, what do you mean? I said, that thing is huge. I said, get a 566 bird. He said, I did. He said, on second thought, doctor, he said, I think they gave me a 560 bird. The wrong size bird. I've never forgotten this file. But these are all reasons. I can tell you. You're all great people. And Cheryl and I are really happy for you to have us here. And I had a big speech planned, but I'm not good of a talker. I really had a drink or something. Thank you. And God bless all of you. And I swear to God, we have a joke. Huh? That was one of those jokes you tell us. But I did my first implant with what's his name, Dr. Schwartz. He said, it's good, Bob, so I quit. No joke. The only joke I have is, what does a woman have in common with a tornado, a cyclone, or a hurricane? She'll take your house. Thank you very, very much.
To our esteem, I'd like to present this plaque that reads, Robert K. Avakian, DDS, with grateful appreciation from the class of 1963, USC School of Dentistry, October 15th.
Thank you. I'm glad to look forward.
That's you pay the bill.
Did he take his notes?
By the way, Max, Don can't come.
Now's the time for some serious discussion. Bob, the microphone is perfect. Thank you. To get us in the mood, I don't know if you're aware, Avi and Sadie had their 50th anniversary, and to commemorate it, they decided to do it for one last time. So they go into the shower together. Sadie goes out first. Avi goes to look for her. He can't find her any place. No place. Finally, he sees her on her head, standing on her head, in the corner of the bedroom, absolutely stark naked. He says, my God, what are you doing there? She says, well, I figured if you couldn't get it up, you could drop it in. I'm beginning to relate to these geriatric stories. Well, has it been 30 years? It certainly has. So much has changed, but so much remains the same. Wendy? You're still a turkey. But a beloved turkey, of course. I was considering enrolling in your class, but I was waiting for the check from Bart Hewler. Did everyone receive an invitation to go for a cruise with Bart? I cruise before I realized that my secondary income was his first. But where have we been in the last 30 years? Where have we been? Well, I decided to say, consider, who has changed the least? Well, you look at Alvin as Rocky, he hasn't changed at all. That's true. By the way, I don't know if you remember Murphy's story. The only reason Al survived dental school is he thought he was a Mexican. Remember that? That's right. I considered Leon Utterman, but Leon was old in dental school. But my person is Woody Clancy. And I need to give you a couple of examples. I don't know how many of you are aware that when Rex Ingram came up with this occlusion before Mel got there and modernized it, and natural dynamics and all these articulators and all that stuff, he did a special project. He got a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior student in a forum. And Woody was a senior student. And Rex, who was kind of excited about this shit, said to the freshman, who happened to be a graduate of engineering, says, what do you think of when you come to dental school and you see all the sophisticated dental equipment? And the recent past engineer, now freshman dental student, he says, Dr. Ingram, this is absolutely amazing. I am absolutely amazed at how you integrated science with biology, and I look forward to my years in the clinic. And Rex is getting excited by this time. So then he asks the sophomore what he thinks of when he sees all this stuff. And the sophomore is looking at it and he says, you know, I'm about ready to go in the clinic. And he says, it's extraordinary to me that I can begin to see biological application of these basic science principles. And Rex by this time is flying. I mean, he's going. Then he asks the junior what he thinks of when he sees all this stuff. And the junior says, you know, I've been in clinic a year. And he says, I'm really absolutely amazed. He said, it is extraordinary how we're able to take these principles and apply them to patients. Then he asked the senior, Woody, who's about to go out and practice, well, Woody, what do you think of when you look at all this stuff? And Woody says, tits. And Rex says, I beg your pardon? He says, what do you mean tits? He says, that's all I ever think of. But to show you that Woody hasn't changed, Dan and Woody just celebrated their 40th anniversary. And Woody came home one night and he says, I'm leaving you for Sally across the street, man. He says, what do you mean you're leaving me for Sally across the street? He says, you come home. I give you an extra glass of wine. He says, Nan, you've taken very good care of me for 40 years. He says, but I'm leaving you for Sally across the street. He says, but I don't understand, Woody. He says, you come home, I give you an extra dessert. I give you an extra pillow at night. He says, oh, you make me very comfortable, Nan, but I just have to leave you for Sally across the street. He says, I don't understand. He says, why? He says, well, I have to tell you, Nan, Sally holds my penis. He says, but I hold your penis. She says, but she has Parkinson's. Did I forget something? Well, as usual, we have to take it where we can, folks. And it is my pleasure at this point to introduce number 25, Harris Stone, who will come up and show us a few reminiscences from 1959. Harris?
It's a remarkable feat. And I'd like to welcome my beautiful wife, Donia. She's been on the road since 2:30 this afternoon. You all know I have 7 children, and she had to deliver these 7 children home to 3 different households. There's 4 different households. But and then on the way, in Inglewood, just off Prairie, she got a flat tire. And that's a pretty rough neighborhood over there. So she called. How did you call the police? Okay, so she got off the freeway and called the police, and they called her. Oh, she has a car phone? Oh, so she doesn't, it's not working. Anyway, she finally got the tire fixed, and she's here, so I'd like to welcome Jonia.
Bailing out of any holes that I'm in. Come on, John. John is a refreshing spirit to get Max out of trouble. Come on, John.
There's only one Max, thanks God. Max, you know, he called me up and he said, you know, we should really work together on this thing today. He says, you can have the easy part. He sends me this packet with all these reunion questionnaires. And he says, all you got to do is go through and, you know, glean out a little bit of information. And I mean, God, Max, this is a life's work here. So much BS I've never read in my entire life. But it's great to be here after 30 years. Is there anyone here that doesn't wear glasses when he works?
I don't work.
You never did work. But old age is great. You know, your arches fall, you get varicose veins, you know, the droopy jaws, the paunch, hemorrhoids, you know, the whole bit. It reminds me of the story of these three old guys that were sitting around talking, and one guy says, you know, old age is the piss. He says, you know, they're in a nursing home. He says, you know, anymore, he says, when I have a bowel movement, he says, it just kills. I mean, it's painful. The other guy says, I know what you mean. He says, when I urinate, he says, the burning is just, he says, I can't take it.
Yeah, John, you're way worse than I am.
Third guy says, I don't know what you guys are complaining about. He says, I wake up at 8. He says, I urinate, it's great. He says, 9 o'clock comes, I have a nice bowel movement. He says, I just wish I could get out of bed before 10. Something I've kept within for over 30 years, and I just really have to get it out. And it's about our honoree tonight. You know, everyone says he was such a great instructor. Well, he was. Everyone mentioned what a great friend he was to the students. Well, that's questionable. Just ask Bob Kasabian. Just ask me. He was brutal with us, and we couldn't understand why. You know, and we'd ask him, you know, what's the deal? And he says, you know, he says, you're just tougher on your own. And I says, what about Zakarian? He says, oh, Zakarian, you know, just don't worry about him. You know, he's just one of the boys over there. But one day, true story, I cut this greatest prep I've ever cut, and Bob was checking, and Rini was checking. It was a double clinic, and that was a bad day in the clinic that day. I remember Rini chewed out Al for really, he said, you cut the bejesus out of that 1, 2. I mean, Al was just down. And Rex was chewing out Woody Clancy for cementing a crown without cement. It had been in for about 3 months. Created an instant endodontist. Anyway, I cut this beautiful prep, and I took my cotton roll and I dabbed it with oil and I rubbed it on there, and boy, this thing was shiny and it was sharp and it was great. And Bob comes over. I don't know if you remember this, but he looked at it and he looked and he looked and he says, Jesus Christ, he says, why did you extend the lingual wall so much?
and the patient's eyes just, like this, and I'm, I forgot to wear my rubber shorts that day, and I'm saying, oh my God, and he gives me some grades, and on the margins he gives me a C-, and boy, I was really down. And then Reenie comes over, I said, Jesus, if Bob doesn't like it, Reenie's going to just ream me. So he comes over and he looks at it and he says, he says, this is the nicest prep I've seen today. He says, the lingual wall's a little extended, he says, but I know you were chasing a little decalcification, no problem. It covered for you, it was great. So he called everyone over and he was showing them this prep. But old Bob, he said, nope, can't have that. He said, it's still overextended, and he was still on me. But he's the guy that really made us all better dentists. And Bob, I really appreciate all you did for us in our class, and I just want to second everybody's nomination here that you're #1 honoree with us. Going back to these questionnaires, the prevailing comments that I got out of these were, I'm still surviving in dentistry. Out of 36 that we got, there are only 4 that are retired. I mean, there are a lot more that are retired. In fact, Harold Edwards stopped by to see us about 2 months ago. He sold everything, bought a motor home, and they're just traveling around the country now. He says, my overhead has been significantly reduced. The other was, I'm still alive and have maintained my sanity throughout all this. Proud of my family. Everyone's proud of their families. The other thing I wrote, I said a lot of BS about the wives, my loving, wonderful life's mate. I mean, it's going on and on. At our age, I mean, why do you even say things like that? I figure these are second and third wives. I guess they felt that if I read it and mentioned their name, they'd get lucky tonight. But I'm doing you guys a favor by not mentioning it. What else did we find in here?
Historical features.
Let's see.
Relics.
A bunch of workaholics, okay.
They're like a relic.
Oh, the other thing were all the kids. On 36 questionnaires, there were a total of 101 children. And out of these, there were 10 that had gone into dentistry or related fields, dental hygienists, lab technicians, and so on. So that's interesting, about 10%. The rest of us were fairly smart and kept our kids out of dentistry. And some of these guys must have been transfused with rabbit's blood. There are 2 guys with 7 kids apiece, 3 with 5. Keith Livingston has 20 grandchildren, believe it or not. Oldest child was 45. Ralph Fontana. Youngest is 1 year, I believe. Fred Light. 1 year old, Fred? 20 months. What a man. Don't worry about anything. We're going to transfuse you with rabbit's blood. You'll be very good, You remember Harbon's Batia? I love that shit, In fact, that reminds me of a joke. This fellow was in San Francisco giving a lecture on ghosts and spirits and so on. And concluding the lecture, there's about 1,000 people in the audience, and he says, I like to take a poll of my audience after I give this lecture, he says, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and I just like to see if things change over the years. He says, how many people in the room have actually felt the presence of a ghost? And about 80% raised their hands. And he says, that's about right. He says, how many have actually seen or touched the ghost? And about another 20% raised their hands. He says, well, things haven't changed in 20 years. How many people have actually had sex with a ghost? And one little turban guy way in the back raises his hand. And He says, my God, he says, I don't believe it. In 20 years, he says, this is a first. He says, sir, would you please come up here? He says, come on up here. So the guy comes strolling up and he says, you know, he says, I'd really like to know. He says, and I know everyone in this audience would like to know, what's it like? What is it like to have sex with a ghost? He says, ghost? I thought you said a goat. Can you believe that? Formula cars. Now let me tell you about Ernie. You know, in the questionnaire, he sent us back his whole portfolio of things that he's doing. He's an artist, he's a dental illustrator. You're great, Ernie. You lose your hearing in the high ranges with the air rotor, and then you're going to lose it in the other, in the racing. You got to watch that. Who else do we have? Windsurfing, Mizrahi, Paul Hicks and Paul Taylor are into cattle ranching. Unbelievable. Paul Taylor lives in Oklahoma on a ranch, he tells us. Two guys are building airplanes. Taylor and Livingston. Walton and Zidell collecting early California art. George Bryant into square dancing. You're going to see him on Grand Ole Opry. Bird watching. Zidell and Matson. Matson said he was birding. Now, I don't know whether that meant you sit on your front porch and flip people off as they walk out, or what. I figured it was bird watching. But I'm glad to see everyone is still vital, still working hard, having great hobbies, enjoying a good life. I won't say anything about Howard. I know a lot of things about Howard, but because my brother-in-law was stationed with him in the most remote part of Japan for 2 years, and I know all the secrets. But I won't say, don't turn pale, Howard. I'm not going to say anything.
That's my normal look.
I know. Because I have a kid that might need to get into dental school. But anyway, we'll be looking forward, Max. We're going to be looking forward to the 35th. We'll see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. As the surveys that John had indicated, most of us are proud of our kids. May our kids be as proud of us as we are of them. The author Leo Ralston wrote, "The purpose of life is to matter, to count, to stand for something, to change things for the better, to have it make a difference that we lived it all." Hopefully tonight made a little difference in your lives. Thank you, and good night, and enjoy the party.
Picking up hot stuff, forget me
opinion. First opinion, right?